Hello and welcome to The Take. I'm your host, Chesley McNeil. Each weekday, we're looking at stories, making headlines, and bringing experts from our community to give their take. Here's a look back at some of the top takes from this week and how those in the know are seeing those stories that impact you. Another bad grade to the U.S. when it comes to maternal and infant health, calling preterm birth rates a crisis in our country. We're joined by OBGYN and 11Alive medical expert Sujatha Reddy. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chesley.
Yeah, I think this is the first time we had you on the show. Glad you're here. All right, so tell us what factors is driving the U.S. preterm birth rates and contributing to this fourth consecutive D+ grade?
Yeah, our preterm birth rates are higher than they really should be, but they've remained kind of stable for the last couple of years. And, we've talked about this when we talk about maternal health, but there's absolutely a racial disparity when it comes to access to health care and maternal care. So, we're seeing that come out now in preterm births, not just maternal mortality. So, there's a few risk factors as well. Lower socioeconomic status is a risk factor, being under 17 or over 35. Having had one preterm delivery before puts you at risk. Chronic health conditions, high blood pressure, diabetes can also put you at risk. Smoking, things like that also. So, we are not doing very well. I guess the only silver lining is it's not going up. But I think one big thing we need to focus on is availability and access to health care, especially prenatal care.
Is that why we talk about the racial disparities? Talk to me about that a little bit. Apparently preterm births are worsening in that particular area. What does the data say and show us about the outcomes for Black mothers and babies?
Yeah, so African Americans have a very higher rate than non-African Americans compared to Caucasians, et cetera, when it comes to preterm delivery. So yeah, I think, the systemic racism in medicine is definitely one contributing factor. I think we're trying to improve that, but we've got a long way to go.
Well, are there any policy changes, or what are the policy changes, such as Medicaid expansion, does the March of Dimes believe are most critical when it comes to improving these outcomes?
Yeah, Medicaid has been a great thing for pregnancy as far as OB care, because several years ago, if you were pregnant and depending obviously on qualifications, you could get emergency Medicaid, and that's in every state, including Georgia. So that allowed women who didn't have insurance, if they got pregnant, to get access to prenatal care. I think that was a big thing that happened, but we could obviously do better. We need to get more women into that care. We still have healthcare deserts all over the country and in Georgia. So I think that's something to think about. But for sure, Medicaid has given women who didn't have insurance access to prenatal care.
You talk about these deserts, right? There is a mom-baby mobile health center. Has that made a dent at all, or is it still just we don't have enough of them or something?
100% what you don't have enough of them. It's a great idea. It's basically a mobile prenatal clinic. They also do well women exams, so just general GYN care as well. But we don't have that in Georgia yet. They're in conjunction with the March of Dimes. A lot of them are done in conjunction with the healthcare system. So perhaps that's in our future here in Georgia, but that is trying to get the health care to where the women are living, if it's in a rural area, or if they're in a place where they have health care but don't have a way to get there. There's a lot of things to think about. But those are sort of mobile house call units. And if you ever watched that show, Call the Midwife, back in the 50s and 40s in England, that's what they did. The women went to the midwives, went to the pregnant women, and that's what these mobile mother and baby units are trying to do. So I think it's a great idea. We just need more of them for sure.
Yeah, I got about 30 seconds left, Dr. Reddy. If you could sit before lawmakers and kind of give them some advice or let them know about this situation, what would you say?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to increase access to health care for our moms and our children. If you can't take care of your pregnant women and your children, society is failing.
Well, it's been so dry around here. You're looking at the latest drought monitor, and it does show that we have, especially over the metro area, severe drought. That's that dark tan area that you see that extends a little bit further down to the south. And that red area in there indicates extreme drought. We have a small area of that, but by and large, much of our area under a moderate drought. And it's been dry around here since September. We had that record-breaking dry spell in September. October is typically the driest month of our year, and now we're moving into November, and not a whole lot of rain in sight. It's leading to brush fires around the forecast area, and we had some earlier this week. Joining us now is Thomas Burnett. He's the chief of the forest protection with Georgia Forestry. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Chesley, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Yes,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, no, I was going to say you're definitely right. It has been extremely dry the last couple of months.
How is that adding to the potential for fires, the forest fires that we see, like the dry fuels that we have around?
Well, it obviously it definitely makes it harder for us to control. So it's been exceptionally dry, like you mentioned, since September. Much of the state is in either moderate or extreme drought right now. We also, in the fire world, we look at something that's a little bit different, a drought monitor called the KBDI, which is just sort of the top 8 inches or so of the soil, and that's is extremely high right now as well across much of the state. So we've definitely seen an uptick in the number of wildfires over the last really over the last couple of months, but continues to pick up over the last couple of weeks.
Explain to us how these fires kind of start, right? For somebody watching right now and they're thinking, hey, yeah, the land is dry, but we got clouds around, we got the sun. How does those fires start?
So here in Georgia, the number one cause of wildfires is people doing debris burning. Typically, it's smaller hand piles that people are cleaning up their yards. You know, you got leaves coming down, of course, in the fall. So you're wanting to clean up, make your yards look good, and you pile stuff up and set it on fire. And then, unfortunately, what happens a lot of times is people aren't paying attention. They leave or they go back inside and the fire escapes. So that is the number one cause of wildfires in Georgia. Just being super dry like it is right now, we just ask for people to be cautious of that.
At what point do we stop people from doing that? Like we're dry now, and obviously we don't have much rain in sight, but is there a point that we get to where we have to shut that down?
So each county in Georgia has the ability to issue burn bans. It's not something that we do at the state level a whole lot, because obviously Georgia is such a big state, and what's going on in one part of it may not be necessarily happening in another part, right? So each county does have the ability to, or city has the ability to issue temporary ordinances to kind of curb the outdoor burning. And obviously if any of them are considering that, we'd be happy to talk to those local city and county government officials and help them navigate through that process.
Yeah. We had fires earlier this week. Do we have any fires out there now, or is everything under control?
We do. So just I had some numbers here, but just in the last 7 days, we've had 228 fires in the state of Georgia, burning about 830 acres. And so although the number of fires is obviously higher than normal, we're managing to keep them fairly small. Georgia, the Forestry Commission, has a lot of people that are scattered around the state. We have a really, really low response time. Our average response time to any wildfire in the state of Georgia is about 26 minutes, and that's whether it's during the day or at nights or on the weekends. So we get there quick, and we're fairly aggressive in the way that we fight fires. So we are managing to keep the acreages low. That's about a 3.5 acre average right now, but for sure, the fire numbers have gone up, and even just since Saturday, just so for the last 4 days, that number is up around 155 fires for 635 acres. So we're definitely seeing an uptick, and we just we want to ask folks to continue to be cautious. Just use a little common sense. We like to say, just check the weather before you burn. If you are going to burn, just take a look at it. Maybe call your local forestry commission office or go online. We've got an excellent resource, gatrees.org. Lots of weather information that you can go and you can look, and also has our contact information on there. So we'll be happy to answer any questions and help folks decide whether maybe it's a good time to burn, or maybe you'd be better off to wait a couple of weeks.
Gwinnett County is expanding food bank support, and Planned Pethood of Georgia is ensuring that pets aren't left behind. The Duluth nonprofit is donating dog and cat food to 6 local food banks, helping families to feed both themselves and their pets this holiday season. Joining us now is C.J. Bentley, CEO of Planned Pethood of Georgia. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chesley. We are so thrilled to be here. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Very important topic here. I don't have pets, so it didn't even come to my mind that, yeah, if you're struggling and you have pets, your pets would struggle too, right? Talk to me about those challenges that families face when it comes to taking care of their pets during these times of financial hardship.
Well, first of all, we need to take care of the fact that you don't have a pet. So we're gonna fix that and make sure you end up with a pet. There's Planned Pethood provides low-cost medical care and spay-neuter services to members of our communities because the cost of veterinary care is skyrocketing, making it difficult for people to keep their pets as part of their family. And food is part of that, right? So studies will show us that people who receive food from food banks and their SNAP program, if they don't have enough pet food to feed their pets, they will feed their pets the human food that they receive. So the decisions that people sometimes have to make are heartbreaking because they've got to decide, do I feed myself? Do I give this to my pet? And so Planned Pethood, very fortunate to receive funding from a grant from the Community Foundation of Greater Atlanta to provide 1,500 pounds of food to those 6 local food banks in Gwinnett County to help allow people to get the food they need to keep their pets happy and healthy, as well as themselves.
Wow. What types of pet food and supplies are being provided to the through Planned Pethood partnership with local food banks?
Right. Great question. Right now, we provided 1,500 pounds of Purina dog and cat food to the food banks. And unfortunately, they said that they would go through that food in a matter of days, very probably. So, Planned Pethood operates strictly on donations. So we continue to ask folks to support our work so that we can continue to provide food because clearly there's a need.
Yeah, I work at a food bank or volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to ask specifically for the pet food when you go to these places, or do they have it kind of out with the regular food?
I believe they have it out with the regular food. Most of them do. We will have finished our deliveries to all of the food banks this afternoon. So they all will have the pet food that they need, at least for the time being, to help get folks through the holiday.
CJ, could this be a reason why we're seeing maybe an uptick in the amount of pets that are at some of the shelters, or maybe even that are now roaming because people have to let their pets go?
So, Chesley, you're now my hero. I think a lot of people focus their frustration at the animal shelters when in fact, it's not the shelter's fault that they're overcrowded. And so as a community, not everyone who drops a pet off at a shelter is a horrible person. There are some people who simply cannot afford to keep their pet. My own dog was living in a car and they were feeding him Cheerios.
Oh, wow.
And they realized that they love this dog, but they couldn't provide for him. They didn't have family to take him. They don't have a line to adoption, connections like we do. So they made the difficult choice to relinquish the pet to the shelter because they believed it was the best chance they were giving their pet for a happy future. And those are the people that we want to support. And the more we can provide affordable medical care, food, supplies, like you said, spay, neuter, we need to, stop the pet overpopulation problem. As long as we're able to keep providing that, hopefully, we can keep animals with their families who love them instead of forcing them to make difficult decisions and turning those animals into shelters.
Yeah. How can folks out there that are watching us right now that are pet lovers like yourself help out Planned Pethood, continue to support pets during this holiday season and beyond?
Well, certainly donations are number one for us. We use every dime we can to put back into the community and help keep our veterinary costs low. We have the exact same expenses as retail veterinarians across the country, yet we charge probably in some instances a quarter to even more for some surgery, less than they do. So that's a difficult financial model, to continue to balance. So donations are always very much appreciated. Pet food also is very much appreciated, and we could use volunteers. We have outreach events. We try to take our services, shot clinics, microchip clinics, we try to take those to the communities for folks who have trouble getting to us, and we always need volunteers to help at those too.
CJ Bentley, CEO of Planned Parenthood of Georgia. Got to let you know my wife is allergic and afraid. That's why we're petless right now. She's allergic and afraid.
All right. All right. That's fair.
Well, Smyrna is unveiling its most detailed look yet at the future of downtown, a sweeping redevelopment plan centered around new green spaces, mixed-use streets, and all built around one historic chapel. Let's break down what this vision means for the community with Andrea Worthy, Economic Development Director for the City of Smyrna. Welcome back to the show, Andrea.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Why is this needed for downtown?
Well, I mean, you've seen a lot of investment all over the country, frankly, but here in the Metro Atlanta area specifically, with communities investing in their downtown. Smyrna was one of the first downtowns to redevelop years ago in the 1990s. And now we are reinvesting, being more intentional with our investment in Smyrna's identity for downtown. And frankly, the other piece of it is the opportunity is in front of us. The First Baptist Church was looking to sell their property. And that is when we sat down and started talking with them about what the future of that site could be.
So you're striking while the iron's hot. That chapel, I understand,
That's
is
right.
at the heart of this vision. Why is it important to preserve and expand its role?
Oh my goodness! Frankly, because it's been a part of Smyrna's heart for more than 100 years, and it's a beautiful building. We believe that it can be preserved for future performance space and public space, maybe perhaps even rental space for weddings and that type of thing. So it's a beautiful chapel on a key corner in downtown, and we definitely want to keep that and expand the green space around it.
What kind of opportunities will this open up for new housing and new businesses?
A lot. I tell you, the one thing I hear in my job all the time from our Smyrna residents is we'd like to see a lot more retail and restaurants in downtown. So this is a great opportunity to add to that. It's about the size, basically double the size of our existing downtown. So very exciting. But to support retail and restaurants, you need some other uses as well. Need some housing to be supportive of that. So we've been looking at a mixture of both rental and for sale housing, which is what our residents have said they want to see.
You know, you're just a few miles away from Truist Park. Are you going to be able to maybe open up some more hotels too to accommodate visiting fans?
We certainly hope so. Our consultant, MKSK, has told us there could be demand for a small boutique size hotel in downtown with this type of mixed use development. So that would be very exciting to add an opportunity for folks to visit downtown Smyrna and stay overnight and support our restaurants and our residents.
Hey, look, Andrea, I'm looking at the website right now, downtown Smyrna, redevelopment.com. You can go there and read some more into it yourself. Tell me about the phases and the schedule. If all goes to plan, when could we start to see some of this development taking shape?
Sure. So first of all, we've spent the better part of a year talking to the community about what they would like to see. Because frankly, the best way to attract developers to a project like this is to have the community on board ahead of time. So that's what we're just sort of getting to the final phase of that process. And hopefully at the first part of 2026, we'll be taking a finished concept plan to council for them to vote on. Then we will be going out to the development community with some type of request for proposals, a request for qualifications for developers to actually bid and tell us exactly what they would build. Of course, based on what the concept plan is, because we want to build something that our community has already bought into. So probably, I would say mid 2026, we'll be going out for that plan. That process will take a little while, but ultimately we'd like to end up, maybe by the end of 2026, early 2027, with a deal penciled in with a developer, a partner who can help us make this reality.
What is your benchmark for success here? I mean, what does a successful downtown Smyrna look like 5 years from now to you?
Well, not just to me, but to our community. So again, part of this public engagement process, we talked to them about what their priorities would be, and they've told us green space, outdoor dining and sidewalks, and making it a walkable downtown. So any developer that puts those things first and foremost, I think will be the one that is most successful in this process.
I tell you, as the father of 2 young boys, when I hear green space, walkable, and restaurants, I am there. I think you've got the attention of all the young families. And we look forward to checking out the new Smyrna, maybe in a few years. Open enrollment is here, and it could save you money at the doctor. When you pick your health plan for next year, you may also get a chance to put money into a flexible spending account or a health savings account. Money taken out of your paycheck before taxes to cover medical costs. But most people aren't using them. Joining us now to explain the difference between these two and the low use is financial expert Andrew Poulos. Great to see you again, Andrew. Got to ask you, we'll just start simple. And what's the difference between a FSA and an HSA?
One of the main things that people need to be aware of is the FSA is a plan where you can put in money pre-tax, but it's a use it or lose it type of account, right? So at the end of the year, if you haven't used everything you got in there, it's likely that you will lose the money that you have in there versus an HSA that you can roll it over year after year, build up what we call a triple advantage, tax advantage. So the money goes in tax-free. The growth is tax-free, and when you pull it out for qualified medical needs, it's also tax-free. So an HSA, in my opinion, is a very powerful tool for healthcare planning.
Look, I will talk about it to anybody who will listen. That triple tax advantage is so important because you can actually invest these funds and essentially treat it as a retirement account, but you also get the peace of mind that you know that money's there if you need it for a medical emergency. I mean, what am I missing? Why would you not invest in one?
Yeah, it's a great tool to let it build up, right? So, if, for example, if you are healthy, you don't really have many healthcare needs. A lot of people say, well, I just don't really need it. I'm healthy. I don't really even need health insurance, for example. You hear that quite often, especially with the rising cost of health insurance now. But the reality is it's that triple advantage plan, triple tax. So you can let it build up for many years, and before you know it, you could have $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 saved up. So as you get older and health issues do arise for all of us, generally speaking, then you can use it down the road. It's not a use it or lose it type of plan like an FSA. So it's just very powerful. And I think it's often misunderstood and people just aren't aware of the actual benefits of an HSA.
So to the Gen Zs and millennials watching, what would you tell them, HSA or FSA? And would you prioritize it over, say, maxing your 401k?
Listen, those are all personal options that someone has to consider, right? When we're talking about HSAs versus 401ks, FSAs, we've got to look at everyone has individual needs, meaning are you healthy? Do you have health issues? Is a high deductible plan right for you? Because to qualify for an HSA, your health insurance plan has to qualify as a high deductible, high cost plan. So that's another consideration. So millennials, Gen Z, typically what we hear is, hey, I'm young, I'm healthy, I don't need it. Or the other side of it right now is with inflation, hey, I'm struggling, I can't even get out of my parents' house to go rent on my own and live on my own and pay the student loans that I've come in debt with out of school. So those are the challenges. But any young adult who effectively has disposable money and has health insurance and qualifies for an HSA, I think it would be just wise for them to consider it because, again, it lets them build it up and it's just tax-free money that's earning over the years.
Andrew, do we know what the contribution limits are going to be for FSAs and HSAs next year?
Yeah, I believe FSAs are going to be $3,400. HSAs on the individuals, $44 or $87.50 roughly, slated for 2026. The carryover in an FSA looks to be $680. Not a lot, right? So again, you got to be careful with an FSA not to contribute more than you need because at the end of the year, it's a use it or lose it type of plan. If your employer, the IRS says you can carry it over up to $680, but if your employer doesn't have that in the plan, then you lose the money versus an HSA where again, you can roll it over. You don't use it, you don't lose it. It still builds over time when it's invested.
Hey, real quick, I got 30 seconds. If you can't afford to max the HSA, is there still a way you can take advantage of that account?
Absolutely. Look, no one said that you have to have an HSA and max it out. We're not talking about maxing out here. Not everyone can afford to max it out. What we're saying is if you have a high deductible plan that does qualify for an HSA, open up that HSA, start funding it. Similar to a 401k, right? No one's telling anyone to go out and max out a 401k when you have other pressing needs and you got to pay the bills. But start with $1,000, start with $1,500, whatever you can afford. Put that in there, let it grow, and continue to invest in it each year.
The Trump administration is taking some of its most aggressive steps yet to shrink the U.S. Department of Education, moving key programs into other federal agencies as a test run for a permanent breakup. New numbers help to tell the story. 6 interagency agreements signed just this week, nearly half of the department's workforce targeted for a reduction, and more than $3 trillion spent since the department was created, while national test scores continue to fall. The Secretary of Education, says these moves are all about proving to Congress that the system can work without a standalone agency.
What we want to do is to show Congress that this implementation works. It's a proof of concept, and it's a show and say, okay, this is how a permanent transfer to this department is going to work. We need their vote to do that, and we're not looking at this lightly.
All right, time for a deeper dive into this. We have Ashley Young, the Senior Education Analyst for Georgia Budget and Policy Institute. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning to you. All right, when you look at these numbers, right? When you look at these total moves as moving programs into multiple agencies, is this a risk of creating more bureaucracy instead of less, do you think?
Yeah, I think that's certainly a concern. I think another concern is that we know a lot of the staff in the U.S. Department of Education have been laid off. And so there's not going to be a lot of transfer of institutional knowledge into specifically the Department of Labor to really ensure a streamlined transfer of services. So I think there will be more chaotic nature here of transferring of services, just because it's going to be in a completely new agency.
Mm-hmm. What do you see as the overall impact of Georgia's education system?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's important to put it into context. So while Georgia in 2024 spent about $32 billion to fund education, only 12% of that was actually funded from the federal government. But let's look a little bit closer at that. It's important to note that the Title I funding and the funding that is received from the federal government is going to support some of our most vulnerable and marginalized students, right? Our students who are attending schools that have high poverty rates, students whose English is their second language, rural students, supplemental instruction. And so all 100 and plus counties, school districts, in Georgia depend on some type of federal funding or Title I funding. So this will have an impact across the state, I would say.
So what happens to those students, say this takes place, right? You talk about billions of dollars here. Is there another source, another stream of funding coming in, or do those programs just go by the wayside?
I think that obviously it's a little bit hard to predict the future, but we do know what has historically happened. We see a lot of cuts for programs that aren't deemed as necessary. And so we know students who have the need for, again, supplemental instruction, after school programming, tutoring services for students, that these programs are inevitably going to be the first to be cut, unfortunately, as we're seeing some shifts in our state funding. We're seeing some property tax debates at the state level that are impacting state funding, which, again, local funding is about 48%, which is the highest portion of funding for states. And so this is going to really make sort of shifts all around that we're really going to have to make some changes up in the state and local level.
Yeah, if the Department of Education is shrunk down dramatically, who makes sure that schools follow those federal laws, like civil rights laws? Who makes sure that takes place?
Yeah, so that is one of the major concerns. I don't believe there's actual information of where sort of the Civil Rights Department or where those services will be transferred to just yet. But these are some of the major issues, and one of the main reasons why many school districts and vulnerable populations depend on the federal government for these services to address these sort of injustices that are happening on the local level. So obviously, I would imagine we'll be getting more information about that. Of course, this just addressed 6 of the agencies, but this will all remain to be seen, but it's going to be important for all of our Georgia students. Do
you think Georgia agencies are prepared to take on more responsibilities for oversight, compliance, or reporting?
That's a great question. It's something that is unclear now, but we're not sure. And what makes this even more, I think, critical is that nationally, right, we're talking a transfer of over $33 billion. So that comes with a lot of responsibility, right? A lot of functions, a lot of services. And so it is going to be a transition nonetheless, but no, we're unsure of how this could really impact sort of the capacity of our state Department of Education here in Georgia.
We understand that 20 states are suing to stop these moves. Do you think they have enough power to maybe slow it or block it?
Let's hope so. I mean, there's obviously going to be much litigation with these types of announcements and shifts, right? Because it is going to overwhelm, as you're mentioning or as you're alluding to, our state departments of education. And so having a better plan as this is happening will be helpful. Again, we know that to actually dissolve the U.S. Department of Education would need an act of Congress, but we are already seeing this unfold. So I'm not sure what role that will actually play in this transition.
A warning here, this video is somewhat jarring here and it's gone viral. There's a woman in Crown Point, Indiana. She's in active labor, doubled over in pain outside the hospital, and then she was turned away by the staff telling her that she's not in labor as she and her husband were driving to another hospital for the woman to give birth. That she gave birth in the car. Both the mother and the newborn are reported to be in good health. The hospital where she was turned away from is now launching an internal investigation. It is a case that's raising serious questions about emergency care and maternal safety and how often black mothers are dismissed in critical moments. Let's dig a little bit deeper into this and what it means for patients and providers with OBGYN and nationally recognized leader in maternal health, Dr. Ebony January. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Dr. January, I have to ask you, what's your first reaction when you see this video?
Honestly, I was quite disgusted. You know, I'm licensed in 16 states, and I will say I've seen some amazing labor and delivery nurses who act very, very quickly. She was in obvious labor. You know, I tell patients when I send them home, if they think they're in labor and they're not in labor, I say, you know, come back when you're one cheek in it. And that means if you can't sit down when you're contracting. And so she was in obvious pain. She's in obvious labor. And the fact that she just sat there and was ignored, it was quite disgusting to me.
Is it up to the staff to make that call, or would it be a physician that would actually make that call whether or not she's in labor or not?
So this is how things go. So when you come into our triage, which is essentially our obstetric ER, we evaluate you, we'll ask you questions, they'll admit you, but if someone is in obvious labor, the first thing that we do is we get help. We get another nurse or a doctor or whomever so that while we're admitting the patient, we can put them on the monitor, assess the baby's heart rate, assess contractions, and then we'll consent her to check her cervix. Once we've checked the cervix, if she's 1-2 centimeters dilated but contracting in obvious pain, we give her some time. 2 hours, sometimes more, depending on how painful the patient or how much pain the patient appears to be in. And then we come back and we recheck the patient's cervix. In many cases, the cervix has not changed, right? But in this particular case, when she is in this much obvious pain, you can admit her for observation. And more than likely, and I've done this hundreds of times, is that they will eventually go into labor, and it's glad that we don't necessarily send them home just because the book says to recheck their cervix in 2 hours doesn't necessarily mean that that's how it's going to always be. So they should have rechecked her. They should have made sure that she wasn't in active labor, and it's obvious that she was. If she delivered so quickly after, she was in active labor.
Is there a federal law regarding this at all? And if it is, what does it say here?
So essentially, by law, women, if they're in labor, they have the right to be examined immediately. This is the EMTALA law. So hospitals must evaluate any pregnant woman who arrives in labor immediately, no delays, no excuses.
Wow. Is this happening more often than what we think?
And, you know, as I stated before, I'm licensed in 16 states, which means I've seen a lot. Black, white, Hispanic, Indian, Amish women, I've seen it all. I don't see this happen a lot. But from what I'm hearing, when people DM me, because I'm very active on social media and I do a lot of education, I have a lot of women who come to me and say that this is happening, that I was ignored, that they made me wait, or they didn't hear my actual issues, my complaints and things of that nature. So it is happening. But the great thing is now we have awareness. I'll tell you, in this particular case where you have the phone, they're recording, whoever was recording, I believe the mom, she should have grabbed the patient's phone and called for a supervisor, a nurse manager, the nurse, the floor manager, the nurse supervisor, and then you can call for a patient advocate. You can actually call for this, and many times these numbers are posted throughout the hospital, and if they aren't, then hospitals need to start posting these numbers.
As we said earlier, the hospital is launching an internal investigation, but is that going to be enough?
I don't think it's enough, right? I think awareness is one thing and investigation is another thing, but now we need training. We're in a day and age, and now one of the trainings that I administer is implicit bias training, culturally competent care training. So I partner with hospitals and community-based organizations in order to do that. And also insurance carriers, they need to train and they need to evaluate often. It's one thing, sure, we have what we call continued medical education, where we have to get training on implicit bias and other things of that nature, but who is evaluating us? Who is making sure that we're actually implementing these things? A one-time training is not enough. We have to take action. We have to evaluate. The administrators and the leaders need to see what is actually happening.
There is a growing number of college graduates who say they are struggling to land that first job after walking across the stage. And many experts point to a changing labor market where artificial intelligence is reshaping entry-level work. The unemployment rate for recent college grads, those adults ages 22 to 27, averaged about 5.3% in the second quarter of 2025, much higher than expected. Add to this, entry-level job postings for grads have fallen more than 30%, with roles most exposed to AI experiencing a steeper drop. As for those doing the actual hiring, about 82% of companies now use AI to review resumes or applications, making it harder for new grads to stand out right after getting that diploma. Let's look for some answers in all this as we do each Monday with local financial expert Andrew Poulos. Andrew, great to see you again. You know, some sobering numbers there if you're looking for a job. Do you think this is temporary cooling or kind of long-term restructuring when it comes to entry-level work?
I think there's a little bit of both, right? First and foremost, we're in a soft labor market, and we can see that by employers who are constantly having layoffs. I mean, large companies, mid-sized companies are having layoffs, and then the restructuring as employers, particularly the big ones, are focusing more and more on AI. So I think the future is that AI will be used more, and that's going to take away from entry-level jobs. The issue is college grads who are coming out are facing a very tight labor market. I think upwards of 10.4% unemployment rate compared to 4.4% nationally right now. So that number is a stark difference between the overall market and where we are for young adults.
So what do you think are the biggest forces creating this bottleneck? You know, so many people, so few positions.
Yeah, look, it's going to be a tight market, so you got to compete against other college grads coming out if you're a recent grad, and you got to compete against technology, AI. I mean, AI is not going away. It's just going to be used more and more. It's going to be part of our everyday lives going into the future, and we can start, you know, we're starting to see companies that are pivoting towards AI. So you got to figure out how to get that job, right? You're one of probably thousands of college grads seeking a job. You got to remember that if you're a college grad, your first job is not going to be a dream job. Your first job is probably not going to be the kind of money that you were hoping to make coming out of school. So you got to figure out how to land that first job, get some skills, get the resume beefed up, and then you can pivot to a better position in the future. But you got to, you know, just come to terms with that first job is not going to be the one that you really were looking for coming out of school.
Yeah, you don't really have the leverage exactly at age 22 right out of college to do some salary negotiation either. I speak from experience. You know, you have young people racking up tens of thousands of dollars in student loan debt right now, and now they really have no way to start paying it off as they sit on the sidelines. So what does this moment say about the return on investment of a college degree?
Look, what it tells us is that it's a difficult situation, and the return on investment initially may not be all that great. I mean, we're seeing blue collar jobs paying better than white collar jobs. So you've got technical schools who are putting out students who are able to get jobs quicker than white collar. It's not what most expect usually, because, you know, the norm is that you come out of college with a great degree and you get your dream job starting at a six-figure salary. That's quite not the case right now. So you got to figure out how to compete, right? Maybe you look for a mentor, someone you can connect with who's got connections, who can help you and lead you down the path of getting that first job. Technology, you know, getting your skills upgraded. So just because you come out of school doesn't mean that you've got all the skills that you need. So you got to figure out how to be able to compete. That's going to be the key factor here.
And Andrew, when you use the crystal ball and look ahead 12 to 18 months down the road, do you see entry-level hiring rebounding at all?
I think a little bit, but it's going to be depending on the type of industry and where AI is not taking jobs versus the industries where AI really is going to begin to dominate. So I think there's still going to be some entry-level jobs for students coming out, but it's just going to be just a needle in the haystack, so to speak. So you got to figure out how to, again, go back and compete, get your skills honed up, and be able to upskill yourself and continue to get better with your resume effectively to be able to compete with those jobs pretty much so you can get through that first job and be able to move up the ladder, so to speak.
This past weekend, a major show of support for Georgia's Latino families. The Latin American Association says the 37th annual Latin Fever Ball raised more than $900,000. It is one of the strongest years in that event's history. But all that success comes as the need surges too. The organization says daily visits to its food pantry have doubled in just 3 months. Let's get more now from the CEO of the Latin American Association, Santiago Marquez. Santiago, welcome. Wow, almost $1 million. So impressive. But we're talking about the need outpacing the resources here. So how long is this funding going to last?
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Good morning. Yeah, the money that we raise was unrestricted money, and it allows us to stock our food pantry. And what I could say is that it cost about $25,000 to stock our food pantry for a quarter. And what's happening now is when we get a delivery from the food bank, in 2 weeks that food will be gone. And we're also doing distribution events. So like this last week, because Thanksgiving's coming up, we did 3 big distribution events where we were serving like 400 to 500 families. And so the food doesn't last very long at all.
I mean, we're talking about demand doubling here. So what all remains unfunded at this time?
Well, it's really the food pantry piece is the one that's, there's really not much funding for it. So helping us to be able to keep the food pantry stocked, and that's in our main facility. We also have a facility in Norcross, and we have 2 smaller offices up in Dalton, Georgia, and each one of our offices try to keep food there. And it also, you have to have people to run the facility, right? And so we have to pay salaries and operating costs. So all of that goes into the cost.
Well, let's talk about what a successful weekend you had. And for folks who haven't been to the Latin Fever Ball, what makes it such a special night in Atlanta?
Well, it is the premier event for the Latino community, and I'm Latino. We love to party. We love to come together and celebrate the community. But I think what makes it special is the mission of the LAA. The mission to provide opportunity for all, and so an opportunity for people to come together to celebrate. And at the end of the night, you know that you're helping the LAA help the community to thrive. And to achieve the American dream makes it even more sweet, makes it even sweeter for everybody who's in attendance.
How do you balance that festive atmosphere with the serious message of need?
Yeah, it is a balance, right? And so I think what we do and what we did this year really well is we were very strategic in telling the story of the clients, not necessarily the LAA, because a lot of people know the story of the LAA, but tying it to our product, and our product are the clients. So we told 3 stories. And we had one young man who had come up through our youth services program speak at the event. And he's the only one that got a standing ovation, right? Because everybody loves to see where their money is going to helping young men like that and young women become successful here. And then again, we all love to have a good time. So as soon as the programming piece is over, we bring the salsa band out and we're celebrating. And we're celebrating because we have a strong community that's resilient and wants to thrive and believes in the American dream.
Santiago, got 15 seconds. What can folks do if they still want to help out and donate?
Absolutely. They can go to our website, thelaa.org, donate, and they can also volunteer. We always need volunteers. So if you want to get involved personally, reach out to us. Love to have you come help us during one of our food distribution events.
All right, before we go, folks, I want to give you my final take. The U.S. Mint may have stopped producing pennies, adding a little bit to their value, but who knew dimes were worth at least $1 million or more? Check your loose change. America's smallest coin could be worth way more than the face value. Here's what you need to look out for, all right? Worth more is the 1894 S dime a barber dime. It was only 24 of them made. There's only 9 accounted for. So you can get about $1 million for that dime today at auction. Also, how about the pre-1965 Roosevelt dime? It contains 90% silver composition, so that's worth a lot of money. And then lastly, your common dimes, your latest dimes. If they have a mistake on them, like next to the date, it doesn't have an S mark, can go for some big bucks. I mean, it's holiday season. Who couldn't use some extra money? It only costs you a dime. Have a great day, folks. We'll talk to you later.